So you're judging people, is what you're saying.
Is it wrong to judge, sir?
Yeah, 100%. Only God is the final judge,
so
not
wrong
you.
To judge?
Of course.
So what I'm doing is wrong.
Yes, 100%.
Stop judging me, sir.
Okay.
It's a quandary that's perplexing.
So if you don't know your reasoning's valid, would it not follow that you can't know anything to be true?
Yes.
Okay, so that's the problem. If you could be wrong about everything you claim to know, it follows that you know nothing.
Yes.
But the problem is you do know things.
No, I don't think so. The only thing I do know is that I know nothing.
Do you know that?
Yeah.
That's two.
Let's agree to disagree.
No, let's agree that you agree with me.
Be discussing Scientology with Hank Hanegraaff, president of CRI.
I want to welcome Keith and Sean Scott back to the broadcast studios of the Christian Research Institute.
And I heard you had Scientologists, a former Scientologist on, and I am a Scientologist, and I have been one for 14 years. And I'm a mature lady. I have grown children. In fact, it was my daughter that introduced me to Scientology. And as a young mother, I knew that, and I was always a very religious person, and still am, and I always knew there was more to life than I was seeing. And I was becoming kind of down because life wasn't exactly, as you get older, you see the hopes and the dreams that you have aren't really culminating, so it kind of makes you go downhill. And so when my daughter introduced me to Scientology, I saw that there are a lot of answers here that I was looking for. And through Scientology, I have been able to refurbish my education by taking a study course. I always was a decent student in school, but I found out why I wasn't a better student, and I went back and refurbished that. Now I can study and read and really get something out of the books I read.
Okay, Vivian, excuse me 1 second. Yeah. Vivian, here's a good example of someone who's gotten into Scientology. Her name is Vivian. She's on the air, and she's saying that Scientology has really filled the vacuum or the void in her life, which we say only Jesus Christ can fill. How would you respond to Vivian?
Well, Vivian, I was curious. You said that you were religious or felt that you were and actually still consider you religious. Does that mean that you believe in Christ?
Well, I believe that Christ was a very special person, yes. I certainly do, and I believe he lived and did all the things that we say he did. In Scientology, it's up to us to determine what is true for us, and we certainly believe in a supreme being. So, I'm just a little sorry, Hank, that you don't have someone on the program at the same time you have these other people, because it's kind of like a kangaroo court.
Well, wait a minute. Vivian, you're on the air, and we're not about to cut you off, but hang on for just a second. You're doing a wonderful job representing Scientology. You talk about Jesus Christ and how Scientology views Jesus Christ. Keith and Sean, you don't happen to agree with this opinion.
I'm not an official authority on it.
Oh, I understand that, Vivian.
Opinion.
Right, I understand that. No problem.
Vivian, we're not authorities either. We're just sharing our experiences, what we learned over our 5 years, too. But what do you think about Christ? Is he the savior of man, or is he just a great person, philosopher?
Frankly, I've always thought he was a very great person.
Do you believe that he was God?
Well, probably, yeah. And the thing is, there is a supreme being out there, and there's a lot of greatness in all of us, and he certainly was an outstanding one.
But do you believe that he was God, the supreme being?
I would not want to say, because that's a very personal thing to me.
Well, ultimately that's what Jesus Christ says the acid test is. Who do you say that I am?
Yeah, that's your view, sir.
No, that's not my view. That's what Jesus Christ said. As a matter of fact, Jesus Christ over and over again said that I and the Father am one. If you've seen me, you've seen the Father. No one comes to the Father but by me. He either had to be crazy on the level of someone who calls himself a poached egg, or he had to be, in fact, God. But you can't say he's a good teacher when he says that sort of thing.
Sir, if that's true to you, then it is true.
Vivian, I was curious because I learned some things about how Scientology felt about Christ after I got out, which were offending to me. But I wonder if you got to a level, and I don't know what level you're at now, but you found out that Christ, instead of being a great person, was the cause of all the ills that are afflicting mankind right now. Would that offend you?
I really don't. I don't recall reading anything about Christ at all.
What level are you at right now, Vivian?
I'm a clear.
On an auditing level?
I'm a clear.
Are you an auditor also?
No, I'm not.
Okay, I would suggest and encourage you to ask questions because...
Who are you talking to right now?
This is Keith, I'm sorry. Ask your friends higher up, what does Ron Hubbard say about Jesus? Does he...
You know, the one thing, I don't have to do that because I have seen enough in Scientology where I've seen it work. I have a lot of young friends from the 60s and the 70s that are off of drugs because of that. Mm-hmm. And so really, it's handling a lot in life. There's a lot more to life, and right now what I'm doing is I'm able to handle myself better on this planet right now. I'm a very ethical person, and Scientologists have to be ethical for it to work, to really work. So that's what I'm addressing right now. And by your telling people not to get into Scientology, you're doing this civilization a great deal of harm because it does make better ethical people.
I'm giving them the value of our experiences, that what we experienced while we were there.
Vivian, interestingly enough, Time magazine, in its recent... Beg pardon?
I have not seen the article.
Well, I was just going to tell you about it. It's entitled Scientology, the Cult of Greed.
Sir, I just want to remind you, they killed Christ on the cross. Now, what do you think about that? Do you think Time magazine would say anything good about anything? If they killed Jesus Christ on the cross, what can we expect of others on this planet?
Well, Vivian, that is a rather unusual analogy, and let me say that I rarely find myself agreeing with Time magazine, but I think they've done an outstanding job in this article.
Because that's what you choose to believe.
Well, see, Vivian, I appreciate and respect your opinion, but let me say this, that truth is not subjective. Truth is objective. And unfortunately, so many people involved in Scientology believe that you can have your truth and I can have my truth, never mind the fact that the two truths conflict. Now, that is not rational and sentient in an age of scientific enlightenment. Would you say, Sean?
No, and also, by the same token, if my truth happens to be that I think I have the right to kill people because I think I'm special in some way, what makes my truth any less important than your truth? Who really decides what real truth is and whose truth has a right to exist and whose truth doesn't?
In fact, Vivian, why don't you listen with an open mind to what Sean has to say about what you can learn in Scientology about who Christ really is?
You know, there's sanity and there's insanity. And when
we'll show you some insanity. Hang on for just a second. Go ahead.
We're in touch with a fella who was audited by an individual who has helped convince him that he was the biological father of Jesus Christ and that the Virgin Mary was not really a virgin, that she was impregnated by accident through some scam. And because of the horrendous, we call it sin, you would call it an overt act of him having fathered the person of Jesus Christ, he has to make up to the church over $1,750,000 to be used for different things. That's an actual person who's been harmed by what you consider a great religion.
Pardon me?
I said I wouldn't comment about that because I don't know anything about that.
Well, you wouldn't know anything about that because you're not allowed to look at anything that is negative against Scientology, are you?
I'm sorry?
You wouldn't know anything about that because you are not allowed to read or listen to anything that's negative about Scientology. You would call that in theta, and you are instructed to not look at the Time magazine article, the book by Paulette Cooper, who was victimized by Scientology.
I have a Bible in my home. I have all kinds of books in my home. I have a book about Buddha.
That may be, but is it a fact that you are not allowed to read anything that is negative about Scientology?
May I remind you that this is the United States and not Nazi Germany?
Well, that's one place that we can absolutely 100% agree with you. This is the United States, and you have the right to be a Scientologist. But I also have the right to warn millions of listeners that Scientology is devastating, and it is cruel in the extreme for me to know what I know about Scientology and for Keith and Sean to know what they know and yet not say a thing, because people are being damaged. And you are demonstrating, Vivian, that you are not open-minded, but your mind is completely closed. You do not want to look at anything objectively. You want to say what you want to say, but you're not willing to reason.
This is your show, and it is a one-sided show, so I guess I don't have...
Well, I tell you what, you've had a lot of time on this show, and we appreciate you calling today. And if you want to talk to us reasonably at any point in time, I've got all the time in the world for you, and so do Keith and Sean. Beg pardon?
In other words, if I agree with you, I can call back.
Not at all. In fact, you can disagree with me all day long, but if you want to reason and talk about truth objectively and with an open mind. I've got all the time in the world for you. God bless. See you, Vivian.
All right, thank you.
Okay, appreciate you calling.
Dear higher power guy or gal.
His name is Jesus.